Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reloading Closet. Today we'll be loading our ammo, alright? So, as always, we'll be dealing with gunpowder, primers, and things of that nature, things that go boom. So, we will be wearing our eye protection. Alright, for starters, we will be using Ramshot Tac. Kind of playing around with that with my AR. We are using Sierra Match King 52 grain hollow point boat tail bullets. Little screamers. All right. Great little bullets. Just for planking and really just practicing reloading, checking out what different things work and so on and so forth. I do have some loads and different cartridge overall lengths that we'll be playing with. So, well, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. So, for starters, all right, we're going to load up our RCBS powder thrower. Our tack. And you really don't want to fill it up. Just enough for the amount of ammo that you're going to be using. Just tap that a little bit. All right. That baffle in there is a uniform powder sorter, a certain another. What it does is it maintains a constant pressure on the tube, whatever it is that it gets filled up in the powder when you drop. So it just helps create uniform powder throwing. So we'll get out our electric scale. Make sure desk is clean. We'll turn that on. Break out my calibration weight. Go through calibration. Pass. Good. Good to go. All right. This little Frankford Arsenal pocket scale is pretty good. The only thing I don't like about it is that since it is battery powered, it tends to shut off. And with the electronics, when it comes to weighing, you want them to actually warm up. So actually, I should have probably pulled that out and turned it on earlier, but for now it'll be good. All right, now we're going to be using my RCBS beam scale to be verifying loads. All right, get you in the picture here. So it needs to be zeroed. So you get it on a level, steady platform. And remember, using a beam scale, it's kind of like using iron sights. It's all about sight picture, and you want to have that same sight picture every time you take a reading. So sometimes, you look away, double check it, come back, and get that consistency spot to make sure it's still showing 0 every time you look at it. So now this thing is zeroed. So all right, we'll go ahead and zero our electronic scale. So what I use the electronic scale is just to verify using this for quickly getting to the right load, and then from there, then I'll just use the beam scale to verify every load. Since we're not doing mass production, I'm going to get a little bit more precise. All right, since we're doing since we're doing load development, I'm going to be a little bit more precise and verifying every charge. That way, I'm removing all the variables, just like using all the same kind of brass. All right, so I have here a used dryer sheet. Now, there's no powder sticking to this per se, but a used dryer sheet, all right, you rub this thing down, gets rid of a lot of the static, and that's one thing you'll see, especially like with a plastic hopper like this. This has already been wiped down, but when you pour powder into it, you'll see powder sticking to the side of it. Wipe it down with a used dryer sheet, and that gets rid of the static issue. Also makes things smell kind of nice in here. All right, so let's see where we're at. 36.3. Oh yeah, so we're way too high. Our desired charge is 26.0. So we'll screw this in, give it a couple of turns, and what I'll do is I'll dump out a couple of them. All right, and let that powder set, get it back to just throwing the more accurate of what it'll be throwing. So you'll notice how when I'm using the powder thrower, all right, I'm pushing this all the way up against the top, because if there's any gap in between there, that powder is dropping out of there so fast, and this thing is so slick, it's going to throw powder all over the place. You'll have powder all over your desk. You won't be getting the same consistent throw because you'll be leaking powder. So, all right, keep that pressure up there and let it drop. All right, so we're 24.7. Okay. So we got to open it up just a little bit. And sometimes, depending on your powder, you might want to have your tray underneath there, because sometimes it'll leak out. At least I've noticed it sometimes. Typically, it's only with the finer powders. So since we change it a couple of times, taps. 26.2. All right, so we're almost there. Up a little bit. Close. $25.8. Okay, so that's a good starting point. So we'll go ahead and set our beam scale to 26.0. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26.0. All right. Go ahead and put this on there. Let it do its thing. And this is why I don't like using the beam scale for testing this, because you give it about 5, 6 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds to level out. Okay, we are showing a little short. So that means that our digital scale is on a little bit, which is good. Okay, so we'll make an adjustment. Now I'm not going to be using the trickler for this, only because it's actually faster for me to just dump the powder. Because trickling with this kind of powder, sometimes you end up going a little over. It doesn't trickle as nicely as, let's say, the larger extruded powders. The charge was just a little high, added a little bit too much back to it. We'll test it again. And it is a process getting this set up. But as soon as you get it going good, so right there we're at 25.9. Let's check it again. 26.0. Okay, so just a little adjustment. That's why I'm not 100% confident in electric scales yet. I've been looking at an auto trickler, but I'm not 100% convinced. So beam scale says it's probably 0.1 grain, a little short. So we'll test it again. That was 26.1. Let's see what the beam scale says. All right, so beam scale says that's 100%, so good to go. So we'll take that charge. All right, let me get this into the picture. Here we go. Set that aside for right now. All right, and then have a funnel. Okay, This one works for all different calibers as long as it fits up into. There's a funnel within a funnel, right? Funnel goes on top and then a funnel feeds down into it. So funnel goes on top. And just for saying that. You just dump it in there, making sure all your powder is out of here and making sure all the powder that went into here goes into the casing. So I've got the die set up for seating right now. This, like I said, is a taper crimp die, but you always want to seat and then crimp. This die can do it, but if you're not 100% on how to get it set up, you can really do some damage and end up ruining a lot of brass and a lot of ammo. All right, so get that bullet in there just like that, and you want it to be sticking straight up as possible. All right, so obviously the way it goes up in there is going to straighten up a little bit, but it won't be perfect, so you want to try to get it as straight as possible. All right, so we've got our seater right here. All right, this controls the seater. The seater is what actually pushes the bullet into the round. So we'll push it up, and we'll turn our seater till we make contact with the bullet. Okay, so it's right there. All right, so you want to be able to count your turns. So I put a little mark on somewhere on top of the seating die, so you can count your turns. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then you just kind of snug it there. I don't even know why I'm using my hands. I have a screwdriver right here, but all right, go in there. All right, so now the bullet is seated. Take a look. Everything looks good, but we're not done. All right, now, all right, bullets are measured to either cartridge overall length or ogive overall length. And for this, we're just going to be measuring cartridge overall length. All right, the ogive is the point in which the bullet reaches its diameter. So this is a 224, believe it or not, caliber bullet, not 22 or 223, but 224 caliber bullet. So the ogive is where the bullet exactly meets that 224 diameter. It's a more consistent to measure there, but since, like I said, we're just doing AR, we can just go cartridge overall length. Because, all right, so we're at 2.289. All right, we want to be at 2.230. So what is that? Do a little quick math. So 2389. So about 60 thousandths down. So we'll go 1, 2, 3 turns down. All right. A little push. You'll feel it make contact, and it's just a one fluid motion. Check. 2.235. All right, so we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. So now our adjustments will become a little bit more fine. So we'll go 1 time around. All right, and with this kind of die, it's really, you can't measure it 1 time around equals how many thousandths on the bullet's going to be seated. They do make dies that do that. I actually have a set of my RCBS Matchmaster dies. You can adjust the die by thousandths. So if you need to move it down 1 thousandths, you just move it 1 thousandths. All right, 2.217. So there, at that point, we pushed it too far. So I made too gross of an adjustment. But luckily enough, we also are loading down to 2.200. So that'll be our first round for that one. All right. So what we'll do is we'll come up here. We'll make, since we're almost there, we'll just make real quick. I think that's maybe a 1/16 of a turn. All right, push it down in. 2.213. So we got 13 thousandths left to go. So let's do another 1/16 of a turn. Actually, that was about 1/8 of a turn. All right, you feel it make contact. 2.210. All right, so we got another 10 thousandths to go. So we'll do another 1/16 of a turn. And check. And 2.2078, that's a long 7, so we'll do another 1/16 of a turn. Alright. Slide contact. 2.204, so we're almost there. So one more quick little bump. And like I said, a lot of people, if you're doing mass reloading, you're not going to be worried too much about that. But since I am doing load development, I want to be as precise as possible. 2.003. So I just moved it 1,000. I really didn't feel like I moved it at all, but one more slight adjustment. Hopefully this will get it there. Yeah, that should be it. 2.202. Not quite there. Okay. Watch, I'll end up being short. Boom. 2.200. Perfect. All right. So now that we have our loaded round, we want to label it. All right. So you'll take a Sharpie marker. All right. And this one is loaded with 26 grains. So we'll write 26.0 slash 2.20. All right, so now that I'll understand that when I go to the range, and I'll be able to differentiate, making sure I'm setting up the chronograph properly. That way all that data is tracked. All right. All right. So we're just gonna keep on going now. Every once in a while, like I said, this scale will shut off automatically. So when that happens, you just gotta reset your 0. All right, let's get our next charge. All right, let's just see where we're at. Should be good. One thing about using electric and beam scales, you need to remember beam scales are really affected by draft in your reloading area. So you can tell I don't have my fan running right now because any kind of air movement in here could throw off this scale. And same goes for electric scales, not so much one like this pocket scale, but your auto tricklers, your like your RCPS Chargemaster Lite, or your Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper, or your Hornady Auto Charger, things like that are heavily affected by draft in your area, as well as electronic interference. So you don't want your phone sitting right next to your scale as you're trying to measure things, because it could really throw it off. I don't know how far it throws it off, but you're not going to get either consistent readings, or you might have issues with return to 0, which means if I put the scale on, it comes back to 0. I pull this off, I put the scale back on, and it might read it 0.1 or 0.2 off. So you're not getting a consistent return to 0. Okay. So hopefully this one does the trick. I might just start trickling, speed this process up a little bit. I've been able to get the thrower dialed in 100%. Okay, and there we go. Finally. Double check it again. And we're making sure all the powder dumps out of the powder tray, and then all the powder you dumped out of the powder tray. Oh, and then just knock that round over. Shit happens. So what we'll do is we take a little bit there. So we have a little bit of powder on the desk. You're gonna spill powder and everything. Okay, it happens. So I'm just gonna take this and just dump it right back in there. All right. Make sure I got all of it, which is usually pretty easy to do. Yeah. Got it all. Okay. This powder. Just kind of in my hands, and in the trash can it goes. Okay. So always got to do that one again. And it's, you're gonna do it. It happens. Most people who are doing videos will probably cut that section out, but I'm not going to. I'll leave it in there. I'll own my mistakes. But like I was saying, when you dump all the powder, oh good, we got it. Oh nope, that one actually a little light. Okay, so we're getting consistent light throw. So I'm gonna turn it up just a notch. See if we can't get a few extra in there. Let's reset our charge. Alright. And it's always key to get that consistent throw, that same movement every time. And it takes time getting used to the throw and how you do things. And you can flip this around the other way. If you want to come down to throw and go back up, you can do that. And of course, that would come up on the heavy side. So let's do it one more time. And this is why I'll do those couple of throws after changing it, because for some odd reason it throws all wonky after you adjust it, and it doesn't get consistent until about usually the 5th or 6th throw is when it starts getting a little bit more consistent. All right, that one right there is sitting 26 though. Okay, so one real quick double check, make sure there's no more powder in there. All right, and all of the powder in the tray, make sure it all goes out. Okay, all the powder is out. Put that back on our scale. All right, and then all the powder in here, make sure it all goes out. Tap it a couple of times. And there's multiple different kinds of funnel setups you can get. I like this one because it works as a tray as well as a funnel. I don't use it as a tray. It doesn't exactly work the best with this kind of feeding situation. It doesn't allow me to get a good cover on this tip right here. So when I dump powder into that, sometimes it just shoots out all over the place and it becomes a pain. All right, got our charge loaded. We'll put our bullet on the top, trying to seat it as straight up and down as we can. All right, and while you're seating, one thing that drives me nuts, and I guess it's normal, especially with RCB, this style of die. I back off the seating stem just a little bit, all right, because it won't seat consistently every time. I'm not 100% sure why. I don't know if it's a difference in the bullets or what, but I had that set at 2.220. I got that last round there, and I could have thrown this one up in there and left it at that setting, and it could have been a few thousandths short, or it could have been 10 thousandths long. So I always back it off a little bit just to be safe, Remember, you can always push it further in. You can pull it out, but that creates a whole new process, because as soon as you put the bullet, as soon as you go and seat a bullet into the round, and you have to pull it, pull the powder, resize the round, because the neck has been changed. So you can see how it creates a process. Let's see. I should get it there. Almost. Try to turn my hand to get that. Just slightly turn. And we're sitting at 2201. This load might be slightly compressed. That might be why it's not. There it goes. 2.200. All right, of course we'll label it. Okay, next one up. And if you guys are curious where I'm getting my load data from, I've been looking at seeing what Sierra has, seeing what Ramshot recommends, looking at what, because they'll have loadings for 223 rifles. They'll have loadings for 5.56. You got, and they're rated at different pressures. I don't want to get into that debate. So it's interesting how you can see how different things load. It's a little heavy. Damn. So last time I shot this, it was loaded at 26 grains and a cartridge overall length at 2.25. And I was not impressed with the speed. I'm shooting out of a 1.7 twist. I was getting about, I think it was at roughly about 2,800 feet per second. At that load, I should be close to 3,000. Interesting enough, I was at the same time, my brother was shooting the same loads out of his gun, but his AR is a 1-in-9 twist. And all his shots were consistently faster. The last load at 26 grams was the highest we loaded at that point. His was actually 100 feet per second, almost to the dime, faster than mine. So, curious how twist rate plays a role. I mean, that's proof is in the pudding. Man, now I'm getting heavy charge. So, it's not throwing as consistent as I want it to. Getting a good throw. I might have to add a little powder to the trickler and just speed this process up a little bit. Reset it real quick. For those that are wondering, my barrel was a Ballistic Advantage. What is it? Hansen profile, I think. I think it's a Hansen profile. I'll put the details on the video later. My brother, his barrel was a I'll put the details in the video after I finish editing. But it was very interesting to see that his was posting almost 100 feet per second faster with the same load, same everything. The only difference is who loaded it. And he is not familiar with reloading, but I was over his shoulder while he loaded all his rounds, making sure he was following the steps doing the exact same thing that I was doing. And now accuracy wise, both guns were just above a minute with that last loading, which is, it's just saying something for an AR. I mean, with hand-loaded ammunition, and a minute is pretty good, and we haven't really tweaked much with it, so we had a good basis to start from. I'm thinking I need to push them just a little bit faster. Okay, so I'm just gonna start templing or start trickling. So this is a powder trickler, and put some powder into it. Okay, like that. And we'll take this. If you're going to use a powder trickler, you want the thrower to be slightly under your desired charge, which we are. Double check it, and you probably add a little bit more. It's tough to do with this fine powder. If I was, like I said, if I was doing something like 4451 or 4350 or Varget or one of those bigger powders, it's an extruded powder. It's a little bit easier to trickle. You literally just take one kernel and one little piece of gunpowder. Can make a difference in where your scale is. Right. So like I said, back this off a little bit. 2.203, so give it a little turn. That's the beauty of reloading, is you can set your tolerances and seating depths. You know, if you've got a goal seating depth of, let's say, let's just go with mag length. Sorry, we'll go a little under mag length, because mag length is mag length. I'll explain that in a second. When you're loading your ammo, you essentially can be as tight as you want to be. So let's say we're loading to a seating depth of 2.25. You know, how close you want to get, you know, can you accept plus or minus, you know, 3 thousandths, you know, 5 thousandths, whatever you want to do. You can, you know, accept your own tolerances and, you know, determine, okay, how accurate do you want to be? How anal do you want to be? I highly recommend getting a chronograph, like a MagnetoSpeed, or I personally have a Caldwell G2, and it does perfect, works perfectly. I haven't had any issues with it. I haven't had any reason to doubt it. Now, I haven't tested my loads against a different chronograph at the same time. But as soon as I get the opportunity to do so, I will, just to verify my confidence. So all the numbers that I get from my chronograph, I take them as they are. I accept them as accurate, because they do, the numbers make sense. Okay, so back this off a little bit because now we're loading at 2.23, so we got to add 30 thousandths to the bullet length. Go ahead and type that out. So we'll see where this puts us. It's not going to be very deep. 230. Okay. 273. Another half turn. Let's see what a half turn yields us. We were at 273 there. So 273, now we're at 255. So a half turn yields us 18. So we need to get to 23. So let's do another half turn. Should put us at, what is that? 37? 2.237. Fast math. So we're getting 18 thousandths. So 37. Let's go. All right, so we're getting close. So we're gonna do a quarter turn. Boom. So mag length. When you're loading your ammo, there's something you need to take into consideration, and that is how long your magazine that your ammo is going to go to allows you to load to. All right, so your standard mag length for an AR is 2.260. That is for your standard mags. Now you can get different magazines that allow you to load out a little bit longer. I was experimenting with my 6.5 Grendel, and I was able to pick up some, I think they were CMC magazines, loaded for 6.8 special, but they were thin, that front wall where the tip of the bullet gets to. It allowed me to measure, load the round out to 2.23 or 2.30. So you're gonna pull it on there, back it off. I'm just gonna do, call it 1/8 of a turn. All right. Let's get it down. .231. See, if I'd have left the die at the same setting of the last bolt that I loaded, I'd have pushed this one too short. By probably a significant amount. At least enough to throw it, not too much for me to want to be losing it for load testing. Alright, so we're starting our next load. This is 26.5 grains, and we'll be loading to 2.25. So go ahead and adjust the die. 2.89. Get down to 25. So we figure out a half a turn is approximately 18 thousandths. So we'll go 2 down. So we want 1 full turn down. That gives us 2.255. So we just need to get an extra 5 thousandths. Okay, that should be it. 0.252. Again, that's that acceptable tolerance range of which, you know, what you want to take on. It really just helps with the variables when you're looking at your standard deviations and extreme spread. I think that's our winning number right there. I got a feeling that that's going to be our load. I hope. We'll see. Regardless, I'm winning because I'm going to the range and I'm shooting. That's all that matters. Nothing like honing the skills. By the way, I do think trickling has definitely sped up this process. I might just stick with it. And I'm pretty surprised at how well this powder trickles. And again, if I left it at where it was, I'd have seeded it too deep. It's the little things you learned about your guys. And like I said, you know, if you're not worried about a couple of thousandths, then hey, by all means, you can lock it in good. And before you ask, yes, I have locked it in nice and tight because it does have a locking nut right here. I've locked it in, and I still get too many variations and seating depths for my liking. So that's why I leave it, and I leave it kind of snug. But I leave it to a point where I can adjust it for every round to make sure to get it exactly to where I want it. What I was referring to as far as like standard deviations and extreme spread, if I know that all these rounds are exactly where I measured them, and they're all, and each 5 rounds for the load development itself are all the same, powder charge is exactly the same, then if my extreme spread and my standard deviations are high, then that coincides to or that means that the seating depth and powder combination, or bullet combination, powder combination, something isn't right there. So it takes a little tweaking, and usually it is seating depth. I know seating depth plays a huge role, I've learned, in your numbers as far as standard deviation and extreme spread. Learned that with 300 blackout. And like I said, it also plays neck tension also plays a role in your standard deviations, and believe it or not, primer sheeting depth. I was reading an article about how going to something like a competition primer sheet or something a little bit more precise significantly helped with lowering your standard deviation and extreme spread numbers. I was actually really surprised to see the numbers from that. So it's definitely something I'm looking for. I haven't decided on where I want to go with it yet, but it'll probably be my next purchase. Typically for my 6x Creedmoor, that's what I'm really the most worried about. And then I always have my Grendel, the AR. You know, I'm not exactly chasing those single digit SDs and ESs. I'd be happy with 20 or less. Alright, so we got all our rounds loaded, labeled, and ready to go. So that concludes my loading video. I'm going to try to do some decent editing, try to shorten it up a little bit. This one's going to be pretty long. Hopefully it's not too long. Next video will hopefully be out here in a few days. That'll be the range day video, and I'll be posting the results and everything that came out of these bullets here. So until next time, thanks for watching.